Hello, thought roomies. It's me, Hallie Rose. Okay, so I'm going to be real with you. I have been sitting here for about 20 minutes avoiding hitting record. And in general, I've been avoiding recording this particular podcast for some time. I told myself it was just because I was waiting for clarity. And the truth is, I've known for a while. And I feel that you may resonate with this. That can often be the case where we sort of know there's something that we are supposed to do on like a soul level. And at the same time, we resist it. And for me, that has been slowing down on this podcast and frankly, in general. Actually lowering my threshold to stress instead of being able to bolster myself up and make it through a lot, actually taking time to nurture myself and my nervous system and like, ooh, how sensitive can I get? Instead of like, how thick of a skin can I get? It's really been this fun exploration in how subtly can I be aware of the energies that are occurring within me and around me. And that can only happen in my experience with a lot of space and awareness. So anyway, the truth is I've known for a while that I was kind of losing my light for, we'll say, version 1.0 of the thought room. And how I could tell that was that I became less and less excited to do the interviews. I became less and less concerned whether, I don't know if concerned is the right word. I became a little disconnected even from the positive feedback that I was receiving. And hearing that it was inspiring and all of these things, I just started to feel something dwindling within me. And it kind of concerned me, actually. I was like, wow, you've put so much energy into this. It's something you're so great at that you love, right? You love it. And I was like trying to remind myself of my values. And that was pretty feeble of an attempt because my mentor said something to me the other day on a Zoom call. And this guy he's 80 years old. He's written 40 books. And I get to tell him about it's humbling, really. I have the privilege, the opportunity of communing with this man who has so much wisdom and also life experience. And I get to cast out to him what my cares and worries of the day are. And I am met with the most, it's like when we get on the call, my mentor, he always begins with saying, tell me everything. And he just puts you on the spot like that. Just tell me everything. Oh my God. What a confronting and reflecting question that is, because the first thing that comes out of your mouth is the thing that's probably at the forefront of needing to be looked at. And it might not be the most enlightened question. At least oftentimes it's not for me. Oftentimes it's just something really petty that I'm embarrassingly struggling with that I bring to him. Or I've also caught myself feeling an initial question and then pushing it down to think of a better, more profound spiritual question to ask. But when he asks me that, he says, tell me everything. How can I serve you today? And I said to him, I am here for my monthly dose of encouragement and kick in the butt. And That's truly the gift of having mentorship. And I'm going to even go so far as to say eldership, because there's a lot that can be gained on a peer level, but there's just something so miraculous about the continuity through time of an older generation speaking to a younger generation, and having watched so much change over the decades. Because let's face it, think back to the year that you were born. I think about this a lot, actually, and it's bittersweet, but the picture of the world that I had when I was growing up as a child in the 1990s, like how I viewed adults, right? Like you're a kid, you're in a little kid body, you look at adults, you're like, okay, that's like what life is like. And they tell me I'm going to get older every year and eventually I'll be like that. So, of course, the framework, the entire concept of the world that you're knitting together is based off of the models that you see around you, which are primarily your parents and other adults close to you. So back in the 1990s, I am looking at my parents, by the way, very fly, dope haircuts on them during that decade. If you know, you know. And looking at their lives. And there's a beautiful simplicity to it when I think back now about how simple I thought life would be from that perspective. And like the internet and everything that's happened. So, because I still remember when my dad had AOL on his business computer in his office. And I remember I was allowed to get an AIM account. And actually, before that, I was allowed to get an AOL account. And I'm going to tell you the truth. If you want to know what my very first email address was, I'm really going to tell you now. And it's going to tell you a lot about me, I suppose. But I think I was around 10 years old. I was 9 years old. I was 9 years old. I got my first email address. And the email address, I'm so proud of it that I picked it and it was available because it was the year 1999. So I thought I'd, use the number 2000 because Y2K was coming up. It was like a big deal, like a new millennia. And so my email address was funbubble2000 at AOL.com. Funbubble. I guess I just like the way those two words sounded next to each other. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. It is super wonderful to have mentorship and eldership and people who can support you. And I have been going through a time, I was going to say a dark time, an interesting time. I'm not really sure how to describe it yet because part of me still feels like I'm in it. And part of the reason I've been resisting coming on to share with you all so much is because I love to have it so neatly wrapped up for you. I love it when it has a bow on it and I can be like, and here's something that will make it better, right? And because that's hopeful. And I am aligned with hope. Hope is one of my key tenets in this life. And I remember a lot of times in my life where there wasn't hope and where there wasn't support. And in some ways in my mind, this period of time I've been going through, it's easy to downplay it, honestly, the level of challenge associated with going through a shadowy, watery, formless time, because I can't compare it to my past. I can't compare it to the challenges that I've survived. it's not as shocking. It's sneaky. It's more subtle, which actually makes sense because the more deeply I go down this path of desiring to know myself, I turn inward to sensitize myself to myself. Like I start listening more deeply. And that, what I was talking about with lowering the threshold of stress, it's like if the outer experience is so noisy, there's no space, there's no pause within time. The thoughts all start getting stacked on top of each other. And that's when you find yourself in the hamster wheel of completing rote tasks and feeling like your days are Groundhog Day loops and you're just in it and you're doing the same thing again. And then you are like, why am I not happy? Why don't I like everything? And the reason for me is because things change. I change. You change. And the idea that we should be doing the same thing all the time with the same people in the same environment, it's just not realistic to me. It's just not true. And clinging on to the way that things were because they worked when they worked, it's a sinking ship. And so the only thing to do, in my experience, and this is what I have done my entire life, when things start to feel out of alignment, I break as swiftly and as gracefully as I can without rear-ending anything, but I am going to stop the car. That's the way I do it. This is an improvement, my friends, from past iterations where I have haphazardly burned everything down. Mind you, I'm not going to say that sometimes things don't need to be burned down. Sometimes that kind of action can serve. For me, what I've been desiring in my journey of this life is balance and finding more of the middle way. And there's so much I want to say to every single one of you. And sometimes I sit here and I'm like, wait, I don't even know who all of you are. I want to know more deeply. I want you to know me. And I sit here often and I do my best to bring out magic and story and connection and depth and vulnerability with some amazing people. But that's where I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable there, pulling out the questions and not so much sharing of myself because, well, let's face it, that's scarier. It's easier to amplify others than to put yourself out on a limb, particularly in today's day and age. And this brings me to really like the season that I've been in and contemplating in is there is a system. I have been in it as you are in it, as we were all in it with social media and branding and podcasts and coaching and spirituality and entrepreneurship. It's like there's this digital world and we're all a part of it, either embracing it, rejecting it, deciding how we're going to be in relationship with it. And the funny thing is, of course, if you're doing something like what I'm doing, people will tell you, you got to have a niche. You got to have a, post consistently. Well, if you know me, then you know I have none of those things. And I just don't believe that's true. I don't believe that that's what everyone is looking for. And part of my issue as this podcast has grown has been the advice from others on how to do it. And here's the thing though, this is what I'm feeling into now. It's one thing if someone gives you advice and you're just like, no, that doesn't resonate. This is what I did, which was like, say no internally to the advice. Like, no, that doesn't resonate. But then I would loop on it, like spiral over it, feel frustrated by it. And I don't want to do it that way. And why am I even here? Why am I in this position of having a microphone and loving to talk and loving to speak and loving to write when I frankly don't want to be a public person? It's like, let me tell you something. When you start something like this, you think, wouldn't it be great if this takes off? Of course, whatever you're making, a film, photography, a painting, a business idea, an invention, an app, whatever, wouldn't it be great if this is seen and recognized by the world? And if you are centered in your heart, and if you put attention and focus and beautiful energy into that thing, I promise you it's only a matter of time. Probably not very long, depending on how centered you can keep yourself on that feeling of that dream. It's probably going to manifest quickly for you. And then when that happens, you can be pretty sure you're going to get a whole other garbage chute of lessons. And they're not necessarily better or worse. And I feel very strongly about that. It's the lessons that we get at different levels of the journey aren't necessarily harder or easier. They're just different. They're just different subtle energetics, and we're refining different things. And so in the beginning of starting this podcast, I was just so excited if anyone would sit down and talk to me. And I had my brand new shiny equipment and was in the jungle at Soltara and Costa Rica. And I was just so excited. I couldn't wait to hit record. I couldn't wait to feel and hear what came out. I was making magic and I believed in it. And I moved to Austin because of a vision that I had in an ayahuasca ceremony. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, and frankly, that's cool. You're the one listening to my podcast. So if you don't like it, I encourage you to become conscious that you would like to spend your energy elsewhere. That for me has been a very empowering choice. I highly recommend it. So I had a pretty deep knowing that Austin was the place for me to move. Deep knowing meaning it was like receiving a telegram. It was very clear what it said. There was no waffling. I didn't know very many people in Austin at this point. I wasn't in the world of coaching or spirituality, anything. I wasn't a brand. I was just a person who had a vision of where they should move. And this was not the first time that something like that has happened to me. So I recognized the feeling and I knew to just trust it. And so I trusted it. I moved here. The city welcomed me with open arms. I fell into beautiful community right away and was just making friends fast, and everything was so full of possibility. And I felt like I was a part of this group of people who really cared about the world and making it better. And we were all doing it in our own ways. And the truth is, after a time, after a year or so, I started to become pretty jaded. And this is why it's hard to talk to you about this, because I really don't want this to sound like a judgment on anybody or what have you, but it's just kind of my truth in this moment where I'm finding the number of people that I'm genuinely impressed by and genuinely excited to ask questions to and to get in the same room with is dwindling. And so I sat with that for a while. I was like, am I just growing a huge ego where I just think none of this is interesting anymore because I feel like I've initiated myself to some high place? I don't know. But very hard on myself about that. Like, okay, Hallie, just, stay open. Stay open. And like any community in the world, my community has their own patterns, their own loops, their own challenges. And I started to become really disillusioned with a lot of it and didn't want to go to, at first I was going to events every single night and everyone's tagging each other on Instagram and it's exciting and there's just all this energy going on. And I was spending a lot of time when I first moved here, maybe most of my time doing that and launching a program and being more in the entrepreneurial side of coaching and expanding that. And I can tell, I don't know what to say other than none of that interests me anymore. And I've changed a lot and I'm still me. But there have been people in my life the last year that have completely broken open the gooeyest, softest, funniest parts of me. And I have loved spending every single day with these people so much. And I have received such an intense, immense, gorgeous reflection of unconditional love that it makes everything else in the world look like bronze. And I have gold. And that's not to put other things down at all. It's just that I have a preference for this gold right now. This is what's really meeting me. And every judgment, every movement toward making myself do something that I didn't want to do, holding myself accountable, being disciplined, it just felt like I was trying to fit my foot into a shoe that didn't fit anymore. Because my reality of what I desire has expanded and simplified. It's expanded and simplified and it's refined. And along with it, so has my social circle. I mean, really, really tight now and very deep. And I would have said that I have dozens of friends. I'm the type of person that makes friends very easily. I connect very well, and I've always been that way. I would go on trips when I was a kid with my parents, and they'd put me and my brothers into the pool, and my brothers over there swimming amongst each other. And after 5 minutes, I've got a friend. We're in some very involved game. We have, we're trading toys. We're writing down each other's phone numbers to stay in touch. It's just the type of person that I've always been. But I use this metaphor sometimes to describe what it's like when we define our new standard for relating. And I talk about it in terms of you're painting a room in your home and you want to paint it green and this is your paint swatch. Things are going to match this. This is your standard. And then somebody comes in and goes, "Hi, heard you want to paint this room. Here's a can of paint." And you're like, "Well, this is yellow though." "Yeah, but it's paint." You're like, "But I'm painting my room green. This is what I'm choosing." And the can of yellow paint is just not going to work for where you're trying to go, the direction that you're trying to go with things, the space you're creating. And it's not a judgment on the can of yellow paint. You just don't want to paint it yellow right now. Someday you might change your mind. That's okay. We don't need to make it about cancel yellow. We don't need to make it some huge melodrama. We can really decide and feel empowered and non-judgmental when we do that. There is a way to close relationships with grace and with deep respect. With deep respect. So that's a lot of what's been going on for me the last year, is creating enough space in my life to repose back more into awareness, spending a lot more time outside in nature, feeling my body, breathing with my body, moving my body, dancing. It was a lot of travel last year. I think I took 19 flights. I was all over the place. Thank goodness this year is more slowed down. But I was really, really living. I was out there living and feeling alive. And it is so much to integrate on the fly. I hardly knew what to say to you all. I truly did not know where to start. And in fact, as you know, when I hit record, I did not know where to start. I did not know what I was going to say. None of this is written down. This is straight from my heart. And not knowing where to start is where it started. I'm here. I'm being honest about what this journey has been and that I'm still in the middle of it, because I'm imagining that this is going to resonate with some of you too. And although I would prefer to be the person with it all tied up in a nice, neat little bow for you all the time, and for myself, first and foremost, that would be quite convenient, wouldn't it be, if things just worked out that way? I know that in the new paradigm that I want to be a part of creating, we bring back more humanity, more authenticity, less filters, less cutting, pasting, changing, warping, AIing, just all of it. Not that those things are a problem, because they're a problem if we make them a problem, right? The things aren't the problem. It's the way we interact and engage with anything, and the energy with which we're engaged with the thing is really where our focus might be better served than the thing itself. Right? People are getting all freaked out about AI and how that's going to change things. And okay, well, yes, likely will, in the way that every other major thing has also shifted and impacted humanity over the course of history, in all of time. Don't you see, we're just part of a big fabric, a huge, long, infinitely long cave painting. And it's just being painted as we speak. And we're part of this evolution. Yeah, it's going to change things, but we're going to change too. We're going to change along with it, as long as we agree to that. And if we agree to that, there can be less pain. And the pain is there when we hang on, and the pain is there when we're afraid. And the fear is normal and natural. And the fear is talking about the old identity. The fear is saying, I don't think the person that I was 1 second ago can handle that can handle this, what's coming up. So I don't think the person that I just was can handle what is coming in the future, right? So both of those things, past and future, neither of them are really in the present. And the magical thing about being in the present is that that's where we get to choose. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can do anything for just one breath. For just one breath, you can do anything. You have done something every single breath you ever breathed since the moment you were born onto this earth. Every single breath is a choice. Is you can do so many things with a breath. You can sing, you can whisper, you can shout, you can cough, you can sneeze, you can you can cry, you can kiss somebody, you can take a sip of something, you can smell the flowers. Every breath is a choice. And it doesn't have to be something profound, because profundity is what you make it. And I've been finding the most profundity in the simplest of things, which include my relationships. And where do I want to start with this, you guys? Holy crap. There's two people in particular that have completely shifted the trajectory of my life in the last year and a half. Those people are my dear, I don't even have a word for her because she's so much more than a friend. My Danny Rain. And the second person is my partner, Kyle. And it honestly makes me emotional just to say their names because of how sacred these two people are in my life. I worried about talking about this in general because I feared that I would just sound like an absolute marshmallow, corny, cheesy blob, and that nobody would take anything that I was saying seriously because none of it was grounded in reality, whatever. Let me tell you something, my friends. I would be the first person sitting on that bench with you before I fell in love with these people. I did not realize until I was no longer alone what that felt like. I didn't even know how alone I had been because I had tons of friends around. Okay? I think I'm pretty likable. I have healthy, happy relationships. I'm texting people. I'm hanging out with friends. I did not know the level of depth that exists for every single one of us. And let me tell you, it's not easy to climb into, or actually it can be. It was both. It was really both for me and Danny when we first met, and I'll never forget that night. But, oh man, it requires you to show up. Love really, really requires you to show up, and what you get out of it is equal to how much of yourself you're willing to show and willing to be seen in. part of the reason I didn't know what to say on this podcast is because, like I said before, I barely know that version of me before I met these people. And so imagine building something for years and putting all this energy into it and really thinking this is the thing that I want to do. And one day, everything changes your priorities. I mean, that my day-to-day life, sharing life in this way with these people, I've never experienced anything like this. Maybe some of you out there will relate to being a little bit of a lone wolf, but maybe like happily so in a lot of ways. Very independent, very driven. I'm a doer, I'm an organizer, I'm a networker, all of those things. And I tried to explain what this has been like to my mentor, falling in love with these people. And I said, for the first 30 odd years of my life, I did my own thing. I mean, of course, as a kid, you're with your parents, but I moved out at 17 and I've been on my own ever since. And in the day to day, it's me and me, man. And we've gotten through some shit. We really, really have. That's why I have no issue being alone. I really love it. In fact, I cherish my time alone. And the version of me that all of you met in the beginning was one who had been through immense suffering. Immense. And that experience baptized me into a whole lot of truth. And I saw a lot of the world for what it is. And I saw all these illusions stripped away. Because when you get rocked by life like that, it strips you down to your essence. You see what you are made of. And in seeing what you are made of, you see what everything's made of. It's also primordial in that experience. And the beginning of the thought room was a lot of stories of my suffering, and actually not even the beginning, all of it, because I think those stories are really relevant and relatable, but I wouldn't be honest with you if I said that's all I want to talk about anymore. Because I really want to talk about love. And not just in the romantic sense, that all-encompassing, embodied, electric, alive, drooling for the juiciness of the world, can't wait to breathe more air, can't wait to be alive one more second. What's around every corner, the world is full of surprises kind of love. It's obviously life-changing. And this may sound really silly, but one of the things I feared about sharing on here is that not everyone is going to be happy for me. And of course, that's always true. But in this tender, newly budding, super soft, newborn baby, gushing with love self that I find myself as in this cocoon I've created for myself, it feels really scary for anyone to poke me right now. Not because I don't know how to handle a judgment. I do. I just know I'm feeling real mama bear, real protective, and my claws want to come out. Maybe that's a good thing. There's been a lot of versions of me that I've been letting die that had to do with people pleasing and saying yes to things I didn't want to do, juggling a million plates, making sure I answer everyone's texts in a reasonable and professional amount of time. No, just not interested in doing that anymore. Not interested. And I am interested in the conversations I'm having in person. I am interested in the devotion to my relationships and the devotion to my writing. My writing, the connection with my inner voice, and that place that I go when the writing comes through. It's so sacred, you guys. And I cannot wait to share these messages with you very, very soon. And I'm taking action to carve out the time that these books want for their formation, their birth. So with that, this podcast came out of necessity because I was supposed to record an intro for the previous podcast. And oh my gosh, shout out to Colby, who was actually one of my very first handful, if not the first coaching client that I had back in maybe 2020. And she, over years, she started off, I think she just did like a 3-month package, did like the smallest package I offered. And I don't want to tell all of Colby's story because I'm going to have her on the podcast. Sometimes she just doesn't know it yet, but now she does. So Colby does a wonderful job at helping me keep my life on track. And she manages the entire podcast team, and she helps out with so many other things in my life. I don't even know how to describe what she does because she's just my Colby, and she's my ride or die. And she's been with me for years now. And we've got to have, different arrangements. We've got to have a coaching relationship, and then it moved into a mentorship relationship. And now she's working with me as another leader on my team. And I call her my director of awesomeness. Anyhow, Colby so gracefully puts into my schedule when I am to record these intros, and had the intro for the Erin O'Grady podcast scheduled. And I sat down to record it, and something like that should really only take 15 minutes at most. And I was just so stuck, you guys. I was just like, how can I, my throat. I just felt like I couldn't say anything to you, all of you, because I respect you so much that I kind of felt like how can I give you any information when I'm hiding the biggest elephant in the room, which is like, where have I been? What have I been doing? And it's been so deep. I like I said, I still don't have all of the words, but it's important to me to share. And I'm grateful for all of you who are here on my journey with me. And know that I will do my best to show up and share my human experience. And please also honor how vulnerable it is to be in a position of God or the universe or your higher self or whatever has gifted you with not only skills and gifts, talents, but also this insatiable desire to share, to write, to speak, paired with this side of me that's like, that's all noise. I don't want any of it. It's not just like I'm neutral about it. Sometimes I don't want any of it. And I just think, I get confused about my dharma. Is it to share? Is it not to share? Is it to share? And it really messes me up. But the truth is, I've always loved sharing. It's just all this weirdness that's been created in these electronic spaces that have had me second guessing myself. I think that's normal. I think that's natural. And I've recognized that, as has happened in my own personal life, that will also happen in this space with all of you who are following my journey and who follow this podcast. It will be refined. And the net that I'm casting might not be so wide anymore. Who knows? Maybe it gets wider. But the point is, I'm not going to adjust myself in order to cast my net wider. That's not something I have an agreement with. That's not something I'm willing to do. I understand that this means that there will be more people excited and more people offended, likely. Maybe not more people excited, maybe the same amount, but I believe that those who were excited will be even more excited, because all I plan to do is, all of us who are already waving our freak flags, I just tend to hold it higher and plan to amplify the weird, because watering it down is not working for me. So with regards to the podcast, what you're going to see is, you're going to see likely fewer episodes for now, because I am diving deeply into all of this, and it is important to me to be expressing and creating from this inner geyser that is like bubbly and strong. And it doesn't always have to be happy or perfect or silly or dancing around my kitchen or all those things that I know are very palatable and likable. It doesn't have to be like that. But what it does have to be is fucking real. Real. That's what I'm interested in. That's my standard for relating. That's my paint swatch. That's what I want. Because I've had a taste now. And all the other little melodramas and little girl shit just doesn't appeal to me in the same way anymore. So what you can expect on here is that when I do sit down to record, it's something like this. It's from my heart. Or you're going to probably see a lot more conversations with those closest to me who are actually in it, who are doing the day-to-day with me. I'll, of course, have thought leaders on all the time, because that's what this is. But if I have someone on, if you hear an episode, if I air an episode, it's because something, at least one thing that person said inspired me. And you have my commitment that I'm not going to air things that I find uninspiring, but somebody reached out and asked to be on the show that seemed important. I'm not doing that. And this podcast is still ad-free, and it has been from the beginning. And trust me, there have been many opportunities, and I'm not saying that's never something I'm going to do, but I don't care about that. I don't want you guys to buy anything that you don't need. I really just want you to have a place where you feel like someone gets it. And from time to time, I will tell you about the things that I'm doing and offer them to you if you would like to participate in it. And those are my commitments for now. Just showing up when it feels authentic and organic, sharing things I actually care about and not anything that I don't, and being a space for you, showing more of myself so that you can show everyone in your world, including me, more of you. I've got a weekend planned with my dear Danielle Rain, and I'm going out to her property. We call it Agave Canyon. That's its name. That's what it's been christened. And it's this beautiful piece of property in the hills in Texas, and it's a sanctuary. So Danny and I are, she has the most amazing husband. Her husband is taking her children. They're on spring break, and he's going to care for them for like 7 whole days so that Danny and I can go to the retreat property and be alone, turn off our phones, be in nature, and write. Because Danny's a writer as well. She writes astonishingly gorgeous erotic poetry. And I'm in the process of completing books. And in addition to that, we're going to take this time to allow our newest offering to form itself. We're leading another retreat in Texas from June 1st to 5th on Danny's property. It is going to be incredibly magical. We will have space for 12. I was going to say women because I think it's going to be women, but who knows? We'll see what shapes up. Sometimes we get really random guidances as like, yeah, actually that feels right. That idea might work. So we'll see. I'm thinking it will be 12 women. And the weekend will be about opening your intuitive gifts. And we'll be sharing a lot about how we've found this simply refined life and some of the things that we're doing to tap into our intuition, and how not using the intuition, but tapping into the intuition is a portal through which a lot more of life becomes clear. There's a lot less self-doubt. We learn to essentially weigh options on the inner. We can learn to sensitize our energy enough that we can feel the different outcomes or the different energetics that an outcome may produce, and then use that information, that feeling, that felt sense information that we receive back from feeling into these different timelines or possibilities. We can use that as data. Just because you get a visceral response to something that feels like a resistance or a negativity doesn't mean it's bad or negative. There's so much that goes into refining our subtle energetics and really understanding the messages from source and from this world and from other souls. So if working with myself has called to you, whether you've thought about coaching with me before, whether there's some of the Instagram content that resonates, whether when you listen to this show, you feel like you're listening to a friend or somebody that you already know. If you have that feeling, I know that feeling because that is the feeling that has led me to my friends and to my mentors and to those I respect in this lifetime. And that feeling that you get is the bat call. That's resonance. That's somebody's vibration speaking to you saying, yeah, more of that. I don't know what it is, but more of that. That's what you listen to. That's what you follow. That's the intuition. So if you feel that and you felt that about working with myself, or you've heard stories about my friendship with Danny, or you know Danny personally, then you're definitely probably on board because she's amazing. And I can't wait for all of you to meet her. And she's low-key so magic. Like it delights me so much that she's not already insanely famous, because I know this woman and she has so much to teach, so much to give. And it's almost adorable to me that she doesn't yet see how profound of an impact she's going to have on this world. She's, in my opinion, one of the best kept secrets thus far. So I really hope that you all get the honor of meeting Danny Rain and working with her and meeting me too. If you want to know more about this, honestly, just send me a DM on Instagram because we're not going to make a website. I don't like websites. I think they're a bunch of noise. I don't like writing copy. I don't like selling things to people. If you want to come. We'd love to have you. If you're not sure, cool. Most people aren't when they first start making this decision. They get that little inkling. That's usually the first thing that happens. Then they get really brave and they send a message and they reach out. Then I'm like, oh, awesome. Great to hear from you. And I usually ask you a few questions about how you found out about it. And then I usually suggest that you get on a call with either myself or Danny. And we get to know you and we hear what's going on in your life. And we hear what has drawn you to this experience. Ask you more about what was that one thing that made you send that message. And you'll tell me, and we'll learn a lot together in that moment. And then we'll help you decide if this is best for you and makes the most sense. And if not, we point you in a direction where you might find what you're looking for. So June 1st to 5th, 2023 in Texas at Danny's property. It's going to be magic. 12 spots. Send me a DM and we'll get to know each other. Thank you all so much for listening this far. And this entire podcast, I felt like I was gonna cry, and I've had this frog in my throat. And it's wonderful. It's very cathartic to be able to be this honest with you. And it hurts a little. And it's scary because I don't want to lose momentum on the things I've been pouring my heart and soul into for so long. But I want to lead by example and show you that priorities are allowed to change. You can love what you love. You can love it fully. You can change your mind about things. You can put things down for a while and you can pick them back up, or you can slow way down. It's your choice. It's up to you to decide. Nobody gets to tell you how it looks. You get to make it your way. And I'm so honored that you're here on this journey with me Thank you. Hey, Thought Roomies. So I know I said I wasn't going to make a website for the retreat. However, Colby went ahead and made us a website for the retreat because she does stuff like that. And she just makes everything that I do so much better. And this website was way too beautiful not to have it grace the interwebs. So we have a website for you now. If you are interested in learning more about the retreat, please visit www.hallierose.com/awakening. That's www.hallierose.com/awakening. See you there.